In this video, we are creating the ultimate shadowy boy, a shadow assassin. We'll be able to kill most anything in one round with one of the coolest weapons in the game, the Shadow Blade. This is XP Goblin. The Shadow Blade is actually a really cool spell. It is a second level spell that can be upcast. It deals 2d8 psychic damage on a hit and importantly has the finesse and light properties as well as it counting as a simple melee weapon that you are proficient with. It can also be thrown, but it requires a bonus action for it to return to your hand. You also have advantage on attack rolls using this weapon while you are in dim light or darkness. Pretty solid. So there's a few things important to note here. Although it doesn't say you add your modifier to the damage, it does say it has the finesse property, which does state that you can add your modifier using strength or dexterity. So we can add our modifier to this damage as well as use dexterity instead, which is important as for our race we are going elf. Really any type of elf or drow, doesn't really matter. Of course high elf gets a free wizard cantrip, so that's cool, but we're mainly going elf so we can qualify for elven accuracy eventually, which states that whenever we have advantage on a roll, using a few different scores including dexterity, we can roll an additional d20. Meaning we will be rolling 3 d20s so long as we have advantage on our attack rolls, which should be pretty simple as we gain advantage in dim light or darkness. I will talk about our background in a bit. Really quick though, do consider subscribing. I'm a fairly new D&D channel with a ton more videos on the way and it'd mean a lot to me if you did. Anyway, for our starting class, not much of a shocker here, we're going Sorcerer. Shadow Blade is of course a second level spell, so we'll need a few levels into Sorcerer. For starters, let's do 3 and take Shadow Magic as our subclass, which allows our dark vision to become 120 feet as well as grant us the darkness spell that we can cast using sorcery points or just cast it normally and it doesn't count towards our known spells. Sorcerers in the 2024 Player's Handbook also get this Sorcerer Rage-like feature, that one of its features says, quote, you have advantage on attack rolls of sorcerer spells you cast, end quote, which could be super nice for us. We wouldn't even have to worry about using darkness to gain the elven accuracy feature that we don't have yet, it would just always be on. However, I do not think that this feature would work, as it states attack rolls of spells, and Shadow Blade, although a spell, summons or conjures a weapon rather than an attack roll. But you can always ask your DM what he thinks. Also, thanks to being Sorcerer, we have access to metamagics, and for optimal DPR for this build, the main one we care about is Quicken Spell, which states, quote, when you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change the casting time to a bonus action for this casting. Well again, Shadow Blade isn't a spell attack, it is a weapon, but you know what spell works with a weapon? Booming Blade. It is also a cantrip, so it won't hinder us from casting any other spells this turn, such as another Booming Blade as our action. As of yet, Booming Blade doesn't add any extra damage to the attack of the weapon. Unless the target moves, it deals an extra 1d8 damage. That is a small damage increase, but it also allows us to have 2 attacks already at level 3. Granted, we don't have very many sorcery points to do so, but it is possible. There is just one more thing we need to bring up with Booming Blade, and that is material cost. There is just one more thing we need to bring up with Booming Blade, and that is its material cost, which states that it needs, quote, 1 melee weapon worth at least 1 silver piece, end quote, which is the weapon that's used in attacking. Now, even though Shadow Blade is a spell, it does conjure a physical sword that states it counts as a simple melee weapon, and every single simple melee weapon has a value of at least 1 silver. This combined with the fact that according to Sage Advice it is supposed to work, and you can also just ask your barbarian friend who has an intelligence score of like 6 how much he'd pay for a magic shadow sword, and boom, it'd have value. With those 3 options, the last one being really weird and not nearly as credible as Sage Advice or it already having a value, Booming Blade should absolutely work with Shadow Blade. Again, at level 3 it doesn't add extra damage, but a bonus action attack thanks to Quicken Spell, which assuming we have advantage because of dim light or darkness, though no elven accuracy yet, we'd be doing 48 plus 6 every turn, or a maximum of 38, or against an AC of 10, a DPR of 24.7. That's pretty decent for level 3 and should increase drastically from here. At level 4 Sorcerer, take elven accuracy as it's awesome and adds a fair amount to our DPR simply because our chance to hit drastically goes up. And at level 5 we're going to our first bit of multiclassing, though we'll come back to Sorcerer and trying to get more sorcery points. But for now we're going to take levels into Warlock, for literally my favorite Warlock, the Hexblade. I just love Hexblade's curse, man. It's not concentration, it adds damage, and it increases your crit range, which now with elven accuracy mean crits have a pretty high likelihood. We'll also take the Devil's Sight invocation so we can still see in magical darkness to pretty much always have that elven accuracy working overtime. We'll also take the invocation Lessons of the First Ones, which is awesome. It allows us to gain another origin feat, for which we will be choosing Magic Initiate Druid, which I'll go over later. Now is a good time to go over our background though. I went with Wayfarer as it allows us to up our dex by 2 and our charisma by 1, which are both our main stats. It also allows us to gain the lucky feat, meaning that if we don't have a way to have darkness on us, so we can use a luck point giving us advantage, and then elven accuracy would work off of that. We'll also be taking Agonizing Blast as they have changed it. It can now work with any Warlock cantrip that deals damage. And you know what cantrip we're going to choose? Booming Blade. Warlocks get access to Booming Blade, so we can take it as a Warlock for it to be a Warlock cantrip. This means our Booming Blade now does at level 7 an additional 1d8 plus 2 for each attack. So right now we're looking at 68 plus 14 or a maximum of 62 damage, or against an AC of 15, a DPR of 45.6. Looking pretty good. We will now take 2 more levels into Sorcerer for more sorcery points and higher level spell slots to upcast Shadow Blade. Here's where you could diverge. You could go Rogue for sneak attack damage and go Thief Rogue to be using Scrolls of Booming Blade rather than using sorcery points. Could also go War Cleric to get the bonus action attack that you could use with your Shadow Blade, though it wouldn't be with Booming Blade. But we're going to multi-class into Fighter. Now, optimization wise, it would be better to start as a fighter for con saves as well as armor proficiencies, but for the formatting of this video, I have it here. We're going Eldritch Knight Fighter for 2 reasons. 1, it helps us get higher level spell slots for our Shadow Blade, and 2, for Eldritch Knight's ability to replace one of their extra attacks with a cantrip at level 7 of Fighter. So we could attack Booming Blade and quicken Booming Blade now. We also get 2 more ASIs, just up your dex to 20 and start upping your charisma. We also gain a fighting style, for which we'll be taking Dueling for nice plus 2 damage rolls of our Shadow Blade. We also gain weapon masteries, and because our weapon has no specific type, just that it's a simple melee weapon, there's only one that we can take advantage of, and that's Nick. See, Nick isn't set to one weapon type or another, just set to weapons with the light property, which our Shadow Blade does have. So we can attack with the Shadow Blade and get a Nick attack with another light weapon that we draw and stow as part of the action with that secondary weapon, as if we let go of our Shadow Blade, it takes a bonus action to get it back. So what light weapon will we be taking? The club. Now on first look, the club sucks, and it does, but because earlier we took the Magic Initiate Druid feat as part of our Warlock invocation, we have access to Shillelagh, which currently puts our club at doing a 1d12. It's not a big deal compared to like a scimitar if we're 1d6, but it is technically the most optimal and was very easy to acquire thanks to Warlock invocations, so here we are. Shillelagh isn't concentration, so it doesn't impede our Shadow Blade either, so now we can just attack our Shadow Blade, Nick attack with our Shillelagh Club, Booming Blade as our extra attack, and quicken spell Booming Blade as well, for a total of 13d8 plus 1d12 plus 33, or for a maximum of 147 damage, or against an AC of 19, a DPR of 110. That's pretty good, but we can get a bit better. If we take our remaining levels into Fighter for extra attack, and also have haste on ourselves for another base Shadow Blade attack, whether from Boots of Speed, a Potion of Speed, a Glyph of Warding, or Friend, it doesn't matter. We can also take Boon of Irresistible Offense for another plus 5 to damage rolls using Dexterity, and that would make our attacks a Shadow Blade attack, a Nick Club attack, a Booming Blade attack for our second attack, another Shadow Blade attack for our third attack, another Shadow Blade attack for our haste attack, and Quicken Spell Booming Blade for our bonus action. That is a total of 6 attacks, and all of that gets you 2068 plus 2d6 plus 76, or a maximum of 296, or against an AC of 22, a DPR of 209, which is really good, and that's without Action Surge. With Action Surge, you are looking at a DPR of 325 damage. I think that's enough damage for one round with a Shadow Blade. I'm pretty sure that is the highest I can get that DPR. Perhaps something with Conjure Mind Elementals might be higher, but I don't think that would work as well. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, leave a like, and subscribe if you really liked it, I guess. Later.